Dude, I'm so pumped to have you. This is gonna be great. Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Simulation. Today we're featuring Alexander Green. What's up?
Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. Yeah. This is totally the future of audiovisual art and experience. CEO of Symmetry Labs, 4 years now.
Yeah. Made it's funny, you know, I think Peter Thiel said companies always have a prehistory, and made my first piece of art like 6 years ago now, so it seems arbitrary saying the company's 4 years old, but that's around when we decided to quit our day jobs and do it for real.
And you did some physics and mathematics at University of Rochester, and then you were like, let me get into the future of art and the future of audiovisual experience. So like, how the hell did that even happen?
It's kind of a crazy story. Definitely was not a straight line. I always thought since I was 11 I wanted to be a physicist. I remember the first time I read about black holes and the fact that Stephen Hawking got paid to think about them all day, and I thought it was just so so amazing. Thinking about the universe, and I loved math, and I loved art, and strangely never really loved engineering particularly. I always liked I was more of an ideas guy, I guess, and so yeah, I did a lot of physics and math, and published one paper, and realized academia was not actually where I wanted to be, and wandered out to Silicon Valley and saw people that were my age and starting companies and just building their dreams and saying fuck it, and just doing it, and was really inspired by that.
Hell yeah.
It felt like growing up in New York, it was more of a culture of like, oh, you pay your dues, you work your way up the ladder, and that was just never, I'm just like too anti-authoritarian and too rebellious, I guess, to really want to play that game, so. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And it's good that you ended up kind of landing out here, seeing people kind of fuck it shipping their dreams, and that working really hard to do so, and not following academia, which you actually ended up fitting your personality and your execution, your vibe much better. Now what you've built is just, it's amazing. I'm so in love with it. Ronnie, can you let's throw up some of the Symmetry Labs work. We have a bunch of great assets to show you guys, and the art is just mind-blowing. And this is like a wow.
It's a TV shoot for Fox. Two chandeliers called Sisters.
These are awesome. Oh, that is great.
Infrared sensors in the floor.
Infrared, Wow. And look at how massive that is compared to the size of the people.
Yeah, it's really hard to capture on video because scale is such an important part of the work,
exactly.
And just being immersed in it.
Yeah, that is so good.
Occasionally we do some commercial work too. This is for Nike, obviously.
Yeah.
That was Super Bowl City, San Francisco.
You guys did one for Super Bowl City.
Yep, we made this game where kids could pick their favorite team, and then if they biked fastest, their team's colors would win. Loved it. Yeah.
Cool. Good you'd include that exercise component. Look at this.
This is an interactive dance floor for Panorama Music Festival in New York.
Such a great idea.
Yeah, it was fun. People loved it.
Yeah.
We don't actually do a lot of music festival work, even though people always expect us to, but. This was, you could live program to that garden. That was actually at a Google event. You could just write the light patterns like right on a computer next to it.
Oof. I'm excited to talk about the tech as well.
There's a lot of tech.
There's a lot of tech. Yeah.
There's a lot of tech.
Oh, that's great to have it right above an orchestra as well. This is like LED sex. It's amazing.
Girl I was dating once described it as LED porn. I wasn't sure how I felt about that, but
It's
I think
great.
she meant it in a good way. So
She did, yeah. So okay, so let's try and go back to the beginning. So we saw this tree, tree of Tenere.
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 As far as I know, it's an African word. Yeah.
Tenere. And the tree of Tenere was at Burning Man in 2017. And this tree is like 30 feet tall.
Taller. It was like
40?
Close to 40. Not quite.
40 feet tall, also probably that wide.
Yeah, about the same diameter. Yeah.
And then it's, what is it, like 1 million LEDs?
Not quite. It was about 175,000
Okay.
and 25,000 leaves. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot of components. Each leaf had a circuit board in it, So
Each leaf has a circuit board. Okay, so let's unpack these, like a couple of these at a time, because this is just so fascinating. So you took, did you make the leaves and the tree of Tenere? Did you make them? What did you make them out of, the actual molds for those?
the leaves themselves are a TPU, which is basically a polyurethane like resin that's widely used in various commercial and consumer products. The tree itself is primarily made of like marine grade steel,
Cool.
very heavyweight steel, because it had to be stamped to support like 100-mile-an-hour winds and 60 climbers, which I was surprised was even possible to get like an engineer to say, sure, have 60 people climb this tree, but it just required absurdly thick steel. The welders were like, we've never even worked with this before, and so that was challenging. The designing the leaves though was a lot of time was spent figuring out how to do it. And I sort of had an aha moment after doing months of research on trying to figure out how to do these leaves, because it was just such a ambitious project doing that many LEDs distributed across 25,000 leaves and doing it all in 6 months and making sure it worked and was cost effective. And it ended up being like sort of a dead simple design. That the leaves were injection molded in 2 halves, and then there was a flexible LED strip that was bent around itself. In general, you can't bend them like continuously, but if you bend them once, you can get away with it.
And so that way the LEDs could shine on both
Both
sides
sides,
of the
exactly.
leaf.
Yep.
And there'd be like what, like 10 LEDs on one side?
Yeah, close. 7 actually.
Okay.
So there was sort of like 3 pointed out each way, and then 1 pointed right out the center.
Center.
Yep.
Cool. Oh, so then that would just get stuffed into the center of this leaf.
Yep. And then the halves would go on top of it, and then you would glue it.
And then
Silicon
glue it.
glue, yeah.
I want to see this in more places. I was just telling you before the show that we have like the Bay Bridge, we have the art, we have the LED lights there, we have this Exploratorium, we have this LED art there. We are starting to have more and more of it across the world in different places. These immersive LED art, audiovisual experiences, but so many of these are not permanent, which sucks. Like, where is the Tree of Tenere right now?
It's in Reno.
Tenere.
No, you had it right. Yeah, you had it right.
Okay.
The Tree of Tenere is actually in Reno, out on a. It's actually uncovered, sort of rusting, sadly. But we've been fortunate to get a couple more trees commissioned by various people around the world. So we have one going into Oslo that was commissioned by a major art collector there, and it's being donated to the city of Oslo, so it's permanently going to be installed in Oslo. Stein Erik Hagen. It's really exciting. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Oslo's doing their right.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. I mean, also Oslo is dark half the year, obviously, so it's a really great place to do light art.
Well, also half the year
It's
not.
light.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
true. Yeah. But and then we're also going to be doing one in Vegas.
Oh shit!
With a really cool show called Absinthe, and really great people. It's sort of it's the best show in Vegas right now. It's like this sort of hipster Cirque du Soleil with like very artsy. You're right next to the performers, and so I'm really excited to work with them.
And this is going to be a show that you make your experience that comes along with the show that they use on their set at the show.
You know, it's actually going to be out. They have this French circus tent where they hold the show in, and it's going to be right outside there.
Oh, cool.
So it's just going to be an art piece, but I normally probably wouldn't have done something in Vegas if I didn't, just because, you know, Vegas is so sort of like flash bang boom, you know, you don't associate it with art, but I went and saw their show, and I really liked Ross, who started it, and I really liked the whole team that runs it, and they're just full of like passion and soul for what they do, and that's why it's like sold out every single night. You know, I mean, it's the most popular show in Vegas, so there's a reason. Yeah.
And so you have Oslo. You have a tree that's going up there. That's so exciting, a permanent one. Mm-hmm. What other? Because we saw so many of these other ones. Because we need to get it. There's so much to talk about, technicalities as well. We saw all these other exhibits that you guys made. You guys have cubes. You like cubes a lot, and those cubes are probably a thinner steel or an aluminum.
Aluminum.
So they're an aluminum, even lighter. And then you have the LEDs just kind of rolling on each side, so you can see it from any side as well.
Yep.
So then the way that they're connected, let's unpack this one and then we'll keep unpacking examples. But the way that they're connected, then you can take so there has to be some electrical engineering component as well.
Oh yeah.
We need to distribute electricity to the LEDs. So usually since there's cubes stacked on top of each other, you can kind of hide the electrical wiring as much as you can until the final out, which will then go to usually a generator.
So the cubes actually run power over Ethernet. So it's one.
Interesting.
And that was a very contrarian choice when we first designed them, but no one did this. I mean, still no one does this for lighting fixtures. Power over Ethernet is primarily designed with security cameras in mind, so you can plug something that has power and data. But even I think part of good engineering is sort of hacking, and we realized that we can get enough power. LEDs are fairly efficient, very efficient really,
yes.
and so we can get just enough power over Ethernet to power one cube. So it's one cable per cube, and it goes in at the back, and it's an interchangeable, widely available, cheap cable that's mass produced rather than using some proprietary cabling system, which a lot of lighting products do. And then the cubes actually fold flat for shipping.
Great.
So there's every single part. It's such a simple idea, or so I thought. Like, let's make an LED cube, and I wanted to make them modular so you could make these different sculptures out of them. And it's sort of like the physical equivalent of a voxel, like rather than a pixel, which is a 2D, sort of the modular component of 2D images. Cubes are a voxel. So
which would stand for
basically like volume pixel.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so, but like so many things in life, doing it is a lot harder than thinking about it. And every single component on the cubes is custom designed. There's literally like 150 components on there. There's 4 hinges, none of which is the same, because to make something fold, there's a sort of asymmetry baked into it. So it's like not like they're complicated to assemble, they're complicated to make. But that being said, the design at the end gives this sort of simple elegance, like a lot of good design does, with an iPhone or whatever. It's like looks simple, but it's not.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. We know nothing about the black box. We're trying to unpack a little about it to understand it more.
Yeah.
I like how you're Symmetry Labs, but you need a little bit of asymmetry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like how you're talking about when you were initially thinking about making this volume pixel, that you would need to somehow make it so that it could like fold down. You were really thinking about transportation and efficiency and setting it up quickly. I'm surprised you have 1 power over Ethernet cable per cube. Huh. Okay, so that means if you have like 100 cubes, you get 100 100-foot Ethernet cables.
Yep.
Damn, that's a lot of Ethernet cables.
It is, and we've thought about doing some proprietary solution with cabling that you'd have less cables, but you ultimately need to get power to every single one. So you could have a thicker cable that went to one, and then some sort of daisy chain situation where and it would be a little bit better, but they'd also be bulkier and then be more costly. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, we found in general that even though it's definitely a lot of cables, there's a lot of things that are really good about the solution. It's very simple, it's very cost effective, and running cables doesn't actually take that long.
So we had an explainer video, which let's throw up the explainer video, and we can keep unpacking like the software as well.
Sure.
Yeah. How the artist who made that crazy Burning Man tree.
This is a piece we made for New York City.
Yes.
It was up all winter.
Founder at Symmetry Labs. We make light sculptures.
All 6 months.
Pretty much from from December. No, not quite 6 months, but
almost like
5. Yeah.
Glowing icicles, frozen lakes you can walk on. We submitted a collaborative proposal to Burning Man for this tree, 4 stories tall, 7 LEDs in each leaf, 25,000 leaves, 175,000 LEDs. People climbed it. We had a full symphony and ballet under it. People got married under it.
People were having so much fun.
The reaction was overwhelming.
Yeah, it was a really overwhelmingly positive reaction. It was great because everyone loved it, not just
Exactly. And then you had kids that loved this NYC exhibit too. There's less kids at Burning Man.
Yeah.
This whole project was under incredible time pressure. We went from design to engineering to fabrication.
This is the acrylic that made the domes for the
in about 6 weeks.
Sea of Light.
A couple sketches and moved quickly into how we would actually build.
There's 2 halves, and they meet in the middle, yeah.
Held up from China. The FDA actually regulates LEDs now. Everything that could have gone wrong. We got LEDs in. We only had a week to assemble 11 very sophisticated sculptures that we had never built before.
8,000 LEDs aside. Wiring is just unbelievable. The team's done a really beautiful
That
job.
we've never built before.
Building the sculptures.
Yeah, the way that we had to build these because of the time crunch was just so crazy. I mean, it was literally all LED strips rather than sort of, say a custom-shaped LED screen or something, which would have made more sense if we had more time. But
We track people over a very large area, and we had to do it fast.
and we had to run this whole AC system out into the street. Ping, who is an absolute genius, wrote this entire computer vision program that we used military-grade IR cameras overhead. Actually, thermal cameras, technically, so they detect signature.
Rainy Tuesday. The sculptures impressively survived the wind, have survived 2 feet of snow since.
Social media seemed to really eat it up. Art tends to be selfie.
Yeah, it was great meeting Ping. I gotta talk to you.
The most fulfilling part was seeing how
really
kids reacted to it. They were
Ping's
just totally
incredible.
captivated with a sense of wonder and curiosity.
Those 2 kids got it immediately too. They were like, you're like a light J,
A light
a
J.
light PJ, light DJ.
But it's a secret. You can't put it in the video.
It's a secret. I can't put in the video.
I can't talk about that one yet.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff's under NDA still.
Exactly. Hopefully, hopefully this is something that we always love talking about, but hopefully we can do a better job at when people create really good technology into the world that it's not as so much about quickly ripping people off, but rather like, hey, how do we reward the people that actually made this and then help spread it across the world? So that is that. When was that? That was how many months ago?
Oh, the Sea of Light went up in December of 2017.
Okay, so that just came down.
Pretty much recently. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so first of all, where was that in New York?
I was in the Seaport, so South Street Seaport. Yep, it was in like the southeast side of Manhattan.
Cool. And then, how does someone even land a deal like that? They're just like, hey, we want to build something cool in our Seaport area.
It's a good question, and I think that we've been really fortunate that word of mouth and people that just love our work follow us for a while, and then when they have budget for it, will reach out.
Exactly.
We have a very like sort of hip, forward-thinking client there, Howard Hughes. They're a real estate developer, and Steve Cornwell, who's the CMO there, is just a very, very sharp guy, and he gets it. He gets what we're doing, and he knew people would love it, and there's a good synergy because really they just want to make the Seaport a fun and engaging place for people to go, and so they commissioned this piece of art.
I like how you say they just get it, because I feel like I am starting to get it, and we're really excited to scale up our events to massive sports stadiums. And when we get there, we're gonna need some amazing art, audiovisual art, and experience.
So
like
I'm in.
We're gonna crush it together, because we got to get the right budget together to make it wild. As wild as even more wild. We want to make your dreams come true. I'll ask you that at the end. But along the way. So you said, Ping, you got a good team. Like, how many people are on this team?
We have an incredible team. The full time we have about 8 people, and then we're really fortunate to work with incredible people like Ping and Kyle Fleming, who's another just really brilliant programmer that contribute regularly, but don't just do this. Ping does a lot of human rights work. He's in Africa right now.
Whoa.
Yeah. So we really. We're really fortunate to be in San Francisco and get to work with some of the best people in the world. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, some of those.
And it allows us obviously to make better, better art. The technology really enables us to do things that are emotionally powerful and beautiful.
Yes.
And a lot of times we have to invent technology. We don't just invent things for the sake of it. It's more like we have an experience we want to create, and then what do we need to do to get there?
Yep.
And often it turns out we have to do some hard shit.
It is, yeah. It's good. Okay, so you got this team, about 8 or so full-timers, and so then you gave a really interesting example when you were doing this work in the Seaport, that you also set up cameras, and this was infrared or thermal or both?
They're thermal.
They're thermal.
Yep. So, and the difference, this was new to me, by the way, it's sort of interesting. Thermal, it's a type of infrared, but it's sensitive enough to pick up, the actual heat that your body gives off.
Versus the cold ass New York temperatures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. With IR, you generally have to shoot IR out and then see what it bounces off. With thermal, it can reliably detect, a person even if they're wearing a jacket and only their face is visible, which we actually did tests of in San Francisco.
That's pretty
good. So it's pretty cool.
And so then the thermal cameras were, and this is brilliant because the computer vision and the code that was able to detect where they were and then also send that signal to the LED. What did you call the little what was each one of those called?
I call them suns, or I don't know.
Sun, yeah,
sun,
that's good.
Yeah.
I like that sun. So they would send it to that sun where the person was walking by, and then you would add a flare to it.
Well, it's actually a little, it's close. There's a layer of abstraction in there that was missing in that. So we have a central piece of software. Everything we do, we have a full 3D model. And that sounds really obvious, but no one does this. And in addition to knowing where things are, we also know where the pixels are and how they're serialized so we can send the data appropriately. So we have one piece of software that runs that whole installation. It has, there were 11 orbs in the installation. And when so these cameras that are above, one of the problems we had to solve is the cameras in camera space obviously don't know where the people are in world coordinates. They're just detecting in camera space, right? So you gotta do this sort of measurement technique where you hold rulers out in front of the camera, in a square, and so you have to write a transformation, which is basically like a nonlinear matrix to get from camera space into world space. And then once you're in world space, you send that to the software, the coordinates of the person and where they're moving. And then the animation, which is running on the sculpture, responds to that, the people's velocity and position.
So depending on their speed and their proximity
Correct.
To each orb. And then you had to do there's a map that you had to make.
Yep.
Of the. Yeah, this is really cool.
Yep.
And
yep.
This is way more complex than what initially meets the eye.
Totally.
Yeah.
And well, it's surprising too because there are things there are sort of black box solutions like Xbox Connect or something, which work very well for tracking somebody over a very small area.
Yes,
for 5 feet, 10 feet, they work great. But that it doesn't work at all for, I mean, this is like, 30 meters by 20 meters or something.
Yeah.
It's just
Huge.
way bigger,
Yeah.
and there's absolutely no out-of-the-box solution that works.
Yep.
We tried all of them.
And you made your own.
Yeah, we rolled our
I
own.
love
Yeah.
it. I love it. And so now all these different tech stacks that you're making can also be licensed out.
Potentially, yeah.
That could be a model for further sustainability and growth, which is fantastic. I'm happy that we got a little bit into the technical nuance of the software and computer vision and how that works with the electrical engineering, the mechanical engineering. I mean, this is very difficult to do.
Yeah, we're a hardware, software, and art startup,
Yeah, hardware, software, and art startup. I love it. Okay, so you also did this. I think this was really interesting to highlight. You had these thin rectangles that were lined up across the floor, the dance floor, and they were.
Oh yeah.
And so this is also cool because I think a lot of people have been in that space. So we can envision ourselves right now on a dance floor, and right now the coolest thing we have is we have those, when you're on a dance floor, and this is not at, Coachella or wherever, but this is when you're at just a normal, dance floor, dance club.
Sure.
You got these lights that kind of you got those lights that are programmable, movable, that just shine big, huge light onto the dance floor in different colors. But when you have them so close, they're hanging right above you, and they're LED strips that are moving and whizzing by and in different colors. I think this adds a whole new vibe to the floor and to the experience. And also that was an outdoor event, right?
Yeah. So I had to figure out which one you were talking about, because we did an actual LED dance floor that responded, which is this one,
Yep.
Portal. That was
one's
indoors,
cool.
though it could be outdoors.
And this is infrared, you said.
Yeah, that actually also has infrared sensors, but the infrared sensors here are in the floor.
Yep.
Every 18 inches or so, and
That's
so
cool.
It's
You have
actually
to walk a little slower for it to catch up. Because,
yeah, I would like it if there were more of them, but yeah, Gen 2. But it works very reliably, and it's a lot easier actually from a software perspective, because there's a lot of just individual sensors, and they either detect something or they don't.
And then this was an LED screen, or what was the floor?
It's basically an LED screen that you can drive on. It can take a lot of weight, and it has infrared sensors every I think it's actually every 6 inches. So
this combined with what I was talking about.
That would be really cool.
Have you guys done that yet?
We haven't. We haven't
that
done
would
that
be
yet.
so freaking crazy for.
I'd love to do a dance club of the future. That's definitely on the list.
That's on the list.
Yeah.
You have a big list.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So also tell us about. Oh man. Okay, now that this came up, maybe we should talk about this quick.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we're designing some. We've been thinking about the future of public spaces and the intersection of sort of lighting and ambient information display. Not really sort of at the intersection, I guess, of functional lighting, design, and art.
Yep.
And so this is one concept that we're working on for a major real estate developer for a project in Florida that I don't know if I can talk about yet exactly, but
Sure.
I'm pretty excited. We're going to do a series of sort of street lamps from the future that are programmable. So.
I love that. I mean, right now we have these, whatever it is, these steel beams jutting from the sidewalk, and then they freaking jut out into the street, and then there's these little 3-circle lamps that it's funny because they've been in place for so long and they just do the job. And the idea is that do the job most efficiently. But how do you do the job in more of a futuristic way and make it also more this ambient information communication as well?
Exactly.
So now you're doing red light, green light, yellow light, and then you can do cool things like weather or transit data and all this cool stuff that.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've been talking about that in the BART corridor for a while on Market Street. People are like, oh, let's make the different colored lines and have them show up in LED so you know when the train is coming and you can go down there. There's been all this.
No, totally. I think there's a lot of things that could get communicated through light that would be less intrusive than a notification on your phone or like some sort of announcement on a loudspeaker. And I think that would be hopefully that's sort of part of the future of public spaces. I think because I think that the world's sort of like devolving towards this like assault on your senses, and I think it'd be really nice if we could figure out a way to have our sort of public spaces and shared spaces be alive and communicate the necessary information, but in a way that's more in harmony with our just our senses, sort of flow state.
Yep. With our senses and also with there's our 15-minute timer. Thank you, Ron. And also with ecology, maybe.
True,
Have you guys been considering like adding, I mean, you obviously did a digital tree, but have you also considered doing like adding in vines and actual plants into the mix?
Yeah, I'd love to do more stuff with plants. I love growing plants.
Some plants and LEDs as well.
I actually, what originally got me super interested in LEDs, funny enough, was I'm somewhat of an expert on hydroponics, and I used to grow medical, well, before it was recreational, I used to grow medical cannabis.
Yeah.
And LEDs were not quite good enough then to do high intensity plant growth. They were just getting there. And I was like doing a lot of research onto them and realizing that if you could program LEDs to be on just when because there's a lot of wasted light and heat from high-pressure sodium and metal halide bulbs, which is traditionally what's been used to grow plants indoors. Mm-hmm. And also plants their metabolisms don't work. They need 12 hours of light to get their signaling so that they know it's time to like flower, but they waste a lot of that. So I think there's actually, LEDs I think are definitely the future of horticulture as well and agriculture even. So I think there's a lot to be done with programmable lighting across a lot of different industries.
I like how you make that tie to how LEDs can actually help so much with agriculture as well.
Yeah, they can. I mean, it's definitely a pretty incredible technology, and it's funny because it's not brand spanking new. It's not the thing that everyone's talking about like with AI or machine learning or something, which we also do some of. But their time. I think is still really just coming into existence in a way. So
I wonder tomorrow when we host David Rosenberg from Aero Farms, I wonder if for vertical farming.
Cool.
I wonder how much LED.
I bet he'll have some interesting things to say about it.
That's good. See how it all connects,
Yeah.
It's so interesting. This is why the multidisciplinary approach to life is so fascinating.
Absolutely.
And that's what, a lot of our vibes are. You dabbled in so much, and that kind of coalesced into this. So now let's ask you about your vision, because we kind of touched on this in the beginning, and I wanted to ask you, what is on this list of epic projects that you want to build out?
Well, I'd like to do more large public art pieces. I really like doing stuff in public. I love seeing how
permanent ones.
Yeah, permanent or
yes.
both permanent or semi-permanent. I definitely am. We did a lot of events. We largely bootstrapped doing corporate events. And that just burned me out on like 1 to 3 day events a bit, because we did so much work on such tight timelines, and I think we're really glad that we sort of graduated from that. But that being said, I'm definitely open to semi-permanent pieces like the Sea of Light, which was up for 5 months, was wonderful. But yeah, I want to do more permanent stuff and keep doing more large-scale works. I love just seeing people's reactions to it and seeing people inspired by it. I mean, the seaport was freezing cold. It was like 0 degrees plus tons of wind chill. And on a Saturday, thousands of people would come out. A lot of families would come out from New Jersey or from Staten Island just to see it.
So sweet.
And it was inspiring for them. So
exactly, it's a testament to your creativity.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so I'm excited about that. And that being said, we also are doing some designs for major concert, like major touring artists. I would love to work with, some of my favorite artists like Radiohead or something.
Yeah.
And I know their lighting designer, Andy Watson, so we've been talking. I would love to open more I'm considering opening a sort of like gallery-like or museum-like experience with a lot of different pieces in it that rather than doing the traditional sort of museum gallery route, just like circumventing that whole thing and having our own experience that we could just show off what, because I think that there is something really important here in telling the story of modern technology through art, because it can make reify, if you will, all of these fairly abstract things, you know, like in a powerful way, and tell the story of now, you know, and what's possible. You know, we're literally always pushing what's possible and benefiting from the open source community, you know, and you know, tools released by, you know, Facebook's AI team and Google's AI and computer vision and it's such an exciting time to be working with technology and leveraging it for art, and I just want to keep doing that. So yeah, and then also, you know, to the street lamps, I'm really excited about doing some more functional lighting and being a part of the future of buildings and being part of the future of cities.
Yes.
Like on some level, we're just doing software controlled, you know, things or software controlled lighting, and you know, I think we might be able to win that. So
yeah. And
see how it goes.
The future of buildings is what is going to be on the side of buildings.
Yeah.
How is information going to be communicated rather than just a brick or
Yep.
whatever it is now. In Windows, now we can have completely different information communicated from the sides of buildings. I'm really happy that you listed having an audiovisual experience museum, because I think that is an amazing idea that needs to happen. There's already so many successful, like there's that ice cream museum. There's like all these things that are like experience-oriented design, and yeah, if I totally think a one based on Symmetry Labs' work across different kind of nodes that you can walk through and experience different one. I think that's a really good idea, and you can even move out the exhibits and maybe turn those into public after a cycle of 6 months or whatever. Put them in places like Oslo, because they actually know more than the U.S. does at times about.
Totally.
I wish that the U.S. could pick up on some cues like that and start implementing faster. San Francisco has done a decent job. New York just did, obviously, but we're not good enough. There's so many of this that could just be incredible additions to the city, even if they're semi-permanent for 6 months.
Yep.
Throw it in there, see what happens, see how much attraction it gets. You know, are there people that want it there? Are there people that don't want it there permanently? Why? Let's have these conversations. I'm excited for your vision, very excited for it, and I really want to build something cool together. So hopefully we can work on a really cool piece. I'm
sure we'll collaborate on something.
I'm sure, yeah. There's so many people that love what you're doing, and that will plug in. Hopefully that will help you guys have all of the creative juices brought into the world. Okay, Alex, let's ask you a couple questions that we like asking on the show. All right. I think this first question is an important one for you because you probably have an opinion on it. The world's moving more into like a globalized state, and we have this exponential technologies kind of exacerbating like how quickly the 1% is like skyrocketing, and the bottom like socioeconomic class is like slowly climbing up. What do you think is going to happen with that gap?
Ooh, that's a very good question and a very tough one to answer. I think that what's going to happen is going to depend on what we do as a society. I think that we're going to either end up with, I think to avert some sort of very bad consequence, like some, you know, violent revolution, you know, the sort of civilization, you know, falling apart, we're going to have to come up with some sort of new economic system, and I hesitate to suggest which one, because I think that needs to be left to people that just think about these things. But I read a lot about, you know, universal basic income and a lot of different approaches to doing this, and I think you know, I think that the good news is that I'm seeing more and more people talk about this openly, and I'm glad it's not verboten, you know, and that it's not just people on the bottom or at the top. That it feels to me like it's becoming more of a mainstream societal issue to discuss, you know, income inequality and wealth inequality and what's going to happen. And I think, you know, hopefully we won't do anything stupid and heavy-handed because the free markets and capitalism have gotten us really far.
They've gone us super far. Yes.
But that being said, there's also major structural problems with them, like externalities, and I think that sort of Randian libertarianism misses a lot of major flaws in capitalism as well. So hopefully we can figure out something that is a hybrid of the best ideas that we have. So.
Yeah, there needs to be an augmentation to the economic fabric.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're just too rapidly moving into the space of exponential technologies.
Yep.
Yeah, and we need to figure it out so bad.
Yeah, and it's not just that one, right? I mean, exponential technology is also exponential risk. If you get, when you have like synthetic biology and like gene editing and you make it really easy to create, either viruses that don't exist at all or old ones that have been eradicated, in your garage. I mean, it's becoming a more and more real risk by the day. So there is this fundamental sort of mathematical problem with technology, which is that it gives people more power, and that's generally a good thing, but it also eventually gives smaller and smaller groups more power to do more damage.
Yes.
And so, to be totally frank, I've thought about this a lot, and I feel like as far as explanations for the Fermi paradox, or why there's not more intelligent life out there, well, first of all, there may be, and we just don't know it, but this might be one of the reasons.
This is one of the questions that we ask on the show, is are we alone in the cosmos?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've thought about how civilizations struggle with figuring out how to work together on the rock orbiting the star.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I definitely don't think, I think that, I personally feel it's very unlikely we're alone, and that all of the astronomical learnings from the last 10 years have been every single time. I mean, like, we keep updating towards, oh wow, there's got to be a lot of life out there. I mean, there's tons of water. We found lots of comets with like complex organic molecules. We're tons of habitable planets in the sort of Goldilocks zone around medium-sized stars. I mean, all that stuff was just not even known like 30 or 50 years ago, or even more recently, 20 years ago. We didn't know whether water was plentiful or what, and it is. And so it's really tough for me to believe that we're alone in the cosmos. So.
But I just want to also clarify on your thought. You do think that civilizations struggle with figuring out how to work together. That's part of the Fermi paradox.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very likely. Seems to me to be very likely. I think it's hard to say anything conclusively about this, right? Because we just don't have data. We have civilization.
I think
one,
it's very likely as well.
But we have.
Think about how hard it is here.
Yeah,
and figuring things out.
And frequently on Earth, or at least in human civilization, it's happened across civilizations, right? We've had collapse, in everywhere from the Mayans to many civilizations across time.
I need to pull a Ron quote for this one. Yeah. The Earth is littered with lost civilizations.
Exactly.
Yes, Ron?
Yeah, and we're next. I'm glad we can laugh at that. But if we don't get our shit together, I mean, it just seems like that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't get your shit together, that's what happens. All right, let's ask you two more. What do you think we're in a simulation?
No.
You think this is base reality?
Well, we are absolutely 100% not in any simulation by any kind of computer that we can imagine right now. No way. But the complexity of...
So it might be something super complex that we can't imagine. So
but at some level, so I've thought about this a lot too. At some level, if it's a simulation made by a 10-dimensional computer that we can't understand, is it a simulation or is it just running the program, Like, I guess it reminds me of what Buzz Aldrin, I think, said when he was asked about the moon conspiracy. And he's like, it would have been easier to just go there than to fake it, And so I've actually done a lot of computational physics simulations. And I mean, even just computing like 10 gravitational bodies to figure out what's going to happen could take, like days on a supercomputer. computing one protein folding could take like till the heat death of the universe. You know, if you did it from first principles. We always use approximations whenever we compute complicated things.
We
so
can't even imagine the energy that is being used to run what you're describing.
Exactly, and I guess my point is like I certainly think that
all the power.
I certainly think there are
stars.
algorithms that control reality. You know, I think like physics is in a way physical laws. I think are probably approximations to like algorithms. You know, in a way. You know, and there is even some evidence at really large scales, galactic scales, that physical laws and constants may change over time, which sort of would suggest that. So I think it may be that there is some truth to the idea that we're in some sort of computer simulation in the sense that we're in a program.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I would call it a simulation in the sense that I don't know that another. Anything's possible. You know, I mean,
program and simulation are kind of interchangeable in this context, I would say. And I think the energy required can be really figured out through physics, through fusion or through energy harvesting. There's so many different ways. Okay. We can unpack that one for a long time. And I'm happy that you're also thinking about how the variables are working in the program, because there are definitely some crazy variables happening, and there's some crazy code baked into reality. It's very interesting to try and parse and understand the rules of, and What do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
I think the most beautiful thing in the world is collaboration. True work, organizations working towards a goal that's bigger than any of us.
Hell yeah. There's something so amazing about getting a village of people together to work on something that's bigger than the village, that impacts the rest of humanity's trajectory through time. I love that so much. I'm glad you said that. It's a good one. Tell us a little bit more about why you think that.
Well, I mean, I've never been asked that question before, so I don't know if I'm going to stand by it. But I think that I know that in my life, I mean, there's so many beautiful things. It's hard to say any one, because I think many of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced actually, ironically, are also the product of one mind. Like a Debussy piano suite, or like a Bach violin concerto, or general relativity. Pretty much everything
Satoshi
Euler ever
Nakamoto.
did. Satoshi's work is very beautiful, and but even those things, ironically, are collaborative because they rely upon this incredible canon of human knowledge, and it's like the old sort of Galileo quote: if I've seen further than others, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants. So it really, even though it's true that they're the product of one mind, they're still deeply collaborative. And I've also just myself, some of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had have been, frankly, some of these crazy art projects, but where it sort of takes a village, and so many incredibly brilliant people came together to make them happen.
Yes, it does.
And contributed so much. Sometimes it was a programmer that was traveling around, France and never even committed to GitHub and showed up at Burning Man with all this amazing code. Sometimes it was, it's somebody just has a day job working 8 hours a day, from 5 p.m. till 3 a.m. on an art project just to help. Was like an incredible mechanical engineer. I mean, it's wow. And so seeing these big teams rally to do this has been, it's just very beautiful, because we live in such a individualistic society, I think. So it's nice to see self-sacrifice for a greater vision.
If I see further than others, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants. I love it. Alex Green, what a freaking pleasure.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for having me on.
This has been so mind-enriching. We love your work. We hope that other people have taken what you're doing and been inspired by it. and definitely get more involved in art, in especially audiovisual art and experience design. Like, check this stuff out. Let's get civilization more immersed in it, because it's just fun. You can get it on the dance floor. You can get it at the public exhibits for kids to get inspired by. There's so many different uses for this, and it's very inspirational. So thanks everyone for tuning in. If you guys had a good time, definitely subscribe, join the family, get the conversation rolling, talk to 2 people about what you learned today, have them go talk to 2 people, go and make something with this, make a video, write about it, go and create with this knowledge, don't just consume it. Also, join us on Patreon when you continue supporting the studio, growing this enterprise, continuing to impact more people. Let's do it together. Go and follow Symmetry Labs. The link's in the bio as well. All right, everyone. Much love. Thanks for tuning in.